Hey y'all! Today in the Wolfenbarger trial, things got heavy. I mean really heavy. The jury sat through a marathon of testimony that included investigator notes, expert analysis, and the chief medical examiner describing what happens when a body is left in plastic bags. Yeah, it's as grim as it sounds. We're talking skulls, saw marks, and the science of decomposition. Oh, and don't forget all those sidebars where the lawyers squabbled over what the jury could and couldn't hear, because nothing screams justice like a courtroom field trip into hair-splitting technicalities. This is day 5 of the trial, and if you thought the state was going to get a clean win with their star medical witness, think again. We're talking expert confusion, inconclusive science, and a cause of death that still can't be determined. Grab your sweet tea, your crochet hooks, and knitting needles, and let's break it all down. The day started with more of what has become a theme in this trial: courtroom huddles outside the jury's presence. Think of it like halftime in football, except the lawyers are arguing over whether certain testimony should even be allowed on the field. Defense pushed back on expert admissibility, confrontation clause issues, and the usual tug of war over what gets to live in the jury's brain rent-free. The judge allowed some wiggle room, but not without caveats. Translation: the state could bring in their experts, but the defense got a promise of limiting instructions. Jury confusion incoming? Probably. Next up, Investigator Michael Sprinkle took the stand. And no, I didn't make that name up. He worked with Fulton County, and his testimony was all about chain of custody, handling of evidence, and the behind-the-scenes steps that don't always make for flashy TV, but matter a ton when you're piecing together a murder case. Sprinkle laid the groundwork. Here's what was collected, here's where it went, here's how it was documented. The state leaned on him to show that evidence wasn't just floating around like loose confetti in the wind. It was tracked, logged, and processed. The defense? They tried to poke holes in his memory and procedures. Classic strategy. If you can't erase the evidence, you question the process. Then came consultant Rosa James, who was admitted as an expert, not without a mini legal fight, of course. The jury got their little lecture about what it means to hear from an expert versus a regular fact witness. Spoiler! It basically means the jury is allowed to take her specialized opinions as evidence. James walked the court through her analysis as a consultant, bringing in outside expertise to help the state frame their arguments. Her testimony might not have been as flashy as what came later, but it mattered because it set the stage for how expert science gets dropped into the trial like gospel. Now let's talk about the main event of day 5. Dr. Carol Terry, the chief medical examiner from Gwinnett County. She came in with decades of experience, countless autopsies under her belt, and the kind of credentials that usually make juries sit up straight. Dr. Terry described in painful detail what happens to human remains stored in plastic bags: the skull discoloration, the tissue breakdown, the total absence of insect activity that normally shows up when a body is left in the open. She reviewed the skull, bones, and evidence bags linked to Melissa Wolfenbarger. Here's the kicker. While she confirmed dismemberment was post-mortem, she could not determine an exact cause of death. Her conclusion? The manner of death was highly suspicious for homicide, but still medically undetermined. That's a huge problem for the prosecution, because the whole case hinges on proving this wasn't just suspicious, but deliberate murder. The defense pounced hard on cross-examination. They grilled Dr. Terry on PMI, that's post-mortem interval, the gap of time between death and discovery. They pressed her on missing x-rays, potential lab errors, and the fact that scientific certainty just wasn't there. Her expertise was rock solid, but science has limits, and those limits gave the defense an opening. For the jury, this was the longest, most graphic testimony of the day. Staring at morgue slides, hearing about saw marks on vertebrae and bones, and processing the reality that Melissa's remains were cut apart with deliberate force. It was grisly, yes, but also frustrating. The experts' science couldn't fill in the most important blank. how Melissa actually died. The day wrapped with a jury charge conference where the judge and attorneys went over proposed instructions for the jurors. It's the dry but crucial part of trial prep, because how the law gets explained to the jury shapes how they apply it to the evidence. Think of it like giving the jurors a rule book before sending them into the final round. So here's the big picture. Day 5 was about the state trying to bring the science. They leaned on Investigator Sprinkle to show the evidence was handled properly. They put consultant Rosa James up to lend credibility. And they rolled out Dr. Carol Terry to hammer home that Melissa's death was suspicious, violent, and not natural. But here's the problem. Suspicion doesn't equal proof. The jury heard a lot about what might have happened, but not enough about what actually did. When your medical examiner says cause of death is still undetermined, that's a heavy cloud over the prosecution's case. The defense took every chance to emphasize those gaps, reminding the jury that science isn't perfect and that the state still hasn't tied all the threads together. This trial is shaping up to be as much about reasonable doubt as it is about gruesome details. And trust me, after sitting through saw marks, skull charts, and expert debates, this jury has plenty to think about. But now I want to hear from y'all. After we just heard the experts, the saw marks, the huge undetermined ruling from the medical examiner, do y'all think the prosecution connected enough dots for this to look like murder? Or do you think the defense made their case stronger by hammering on the science gaps? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love seeing how different people read these trials. Some of you pick up details I never would have noticed. And let's be real, if you were on this jury, this is the kind of testimony that could keep you up at night. So what's your verdict on day 5? Stay tuned, because day 6 is where things are going to get even more tangled. And you know I'll be here to break it all down for you, with sass, snark, and way too much caffeine. And that's it for this recap. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching and supporting me. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell so you don't miss any of my recaps. And remember, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.